Bonjour amigos, welcome, and this is Blitz Boy HD.
Is this better? Or do I still sound like a bloody chipmunk? Fun fact, this is the first of my high school writings that I'll cover, and the reason for that is that this is the first story that I ever completed. Completed as in fleshed out the story, put the scenes together, instead of just imagining the scenes and building it up so much in my head that I don't actually put them together into a coherent story because I'm afraid it won't be like what I imagined, which happened a lot in high school and every year since. The story is about Dan and Dr. Trayaurus going on an adventure, and in that adventure protecting a village from a raid. Simple. Well, from now on things are gonna get a little more confusing. I'm going to avoid doing that thing where I give you all the damn details of how the story came to be. Instead, I'll just go over a couple of disclaimers and then get to the story. A couple of the scenes, I think scene 2 and 3, have some really graphic violence. I don't know, I guess I was just in a bad mood that day. I don't know where it came from. Also, on that note, I should clarify, not all of it was written at once. In fact, it was written years apart, and you can definitely tell with the style. Or maybe only I can tell because I was there. Location wise, if you're familiar with the Minecraft High School series, which helped inspire the setting for the story, you likely know that the lab was in a desert. Well, in this case, it's in the middle of a dark forest. Also, while we're on the topic of location, the story is set in version 1.14 or 1.14 because I'll be honest, I haven't really kept up since then. Although it is set in a custom mod, which I explained in a previous video. I should clarify something. The decision to set the story in this mod was only taken after I had started writing it, which means that scene 1, as it appears on the site, is not canon. Instead, let's start going over the canon now. I hope this time it recorded my voice properly. Our story begins with Dr. Trayaurus PhD waking Dan up with a cup of tea. Dan, however, already awoke and because of his headache couldn't go back to sleep for hours. To try and take his mind elsewhere, the two leave the dark forest lab, remember it's in the dark forest, and head to the library. That's where they work. There they meet Luna and Jason, a couple of friends that they have. Luna notices something wrong with Dan, but he tries to play it cool. But the librarian Mr. Murr also notices and sends him home. Now all four of them go to the lab together, because that's what friends are for, an excuse to leave work. At the lab, Luna tends to Dan, while Jason tells PhD about a festival that night. PhD says that if Dan feels better, they'll go. Dan overhears this conversation and asks Luna what she thinks. She wants Dan to come. Oi. She wants Dan to come, but not with the way he is. She would like to stay, but she has to begin writing a story before the festival begins. The siblings leave and wish the residents well. For the afternoon, PhD tries all that he can to diagnose what's going on, while Dan keeps trying to feel better but just can't. When evening arrives, Dan does start to feel better, and he's very adamant that he's going to the festival. PhD disagrees with him at first, saying that they could get lost in the dark, but eventually he just has to go, especially when Dan gets up and puts his outside clothes on to prove that he's feeling better. Well, now you just have no choice. Okay, I'm trying to look for the mouse. Okay, sorry, I had the screen on very low brightness so that way it doesn't reflect off my glasses, but sometimes I struggle to I struggle to see it myself. Surprise, surprise, they get lost in the dark. And there's lightning now. Dan suggests that they go back home. Unfortunately, they have no idea where home is, or where they are. When it gets to nighttime, the zombies start arriving. Now they don't need directions, they just need to spot. Spot is in my South African school we used to say spot when we say you need to run away from something. The problem with South African slang is I don't know how much of it is South African slang and how much of it is just what we used in my school. To escape the zombies, they climb up the trees, where they need to continue running because skeletons. Leaving out the details, once they have a quick scuffle in a cave, they get back to the same spot. Thankfully, skelebones are kinda dumb, so they just start shooting each other while the heroes climb up the mansion. Once they break the window with a spider they fight, definitely leaving out the details on that one, they break into the chicken room and take rest for the night. Yes, there's a chicken room. The next day, Dan wakes up first. He notices PhD still asleep, so he quietly steps out to check the area. He follows the red carpet to a staircase and then turns back to inform sleepy PhD. Back in the room, wakey PhD notices that he's alone, so he gets up to look for Dan. Like all of us would in that situation, he feels quite nervous when he hears an axe slamming into wood, and when he hears strange voices, he's out there. Dan runs back into the room and finds it empty, apart from the chicken, obviously. He climbs on top of the chicken to hide, but he can't stay there for too long. A quick note, in the writing, it goes back and forth between their perspectives. For this summary, I'm just going to focus on one at a time. Focusing on Dan for now. Dan breaks the glass. Once Dan breaks the glass and lands on the roof, he has a fight with one of the Mensa that follow him and then runs away. He sprints, but eventually he runs out of roof. PhD sneaks around, successfully, but because he's a main character, he breaks a vase and has a fight. In the fight, the window gets shattered, which allows clumsy PhD to rejoin Dan and escape into the forest again. Also, retreatifying isn't the word. I'm thinking instead of making the whole thing one video, I'm going to split it into parts, so this is part 1. I'll see you for the next one.